Here we fucking go. I'm about to enlighten you on the matter. I just want to point out that this is the first time I have listened to someone rap that actually made me want to listen to someone else rap about cars, PlayStations, women, rims.
I don't listen to hip-hop.
Dear atheist, so many say that if there's a God, why do bad things happen? Maybe we should ask the question, if there's no God, how could anything happen?
Maybe we should ask if there's a God who made him. I think it would blow your mind how hard the answer is to find.
God doesn't always give a reason for suffering, but he does give hope. I'd rather find hope in him than not have any hope.
When does God ever communicate a reason? How do I sign up for the God Collateral Damage newsletter? As for God giving hope, the Bible and the way you perceive it gives you hope. God is nowhere. He is nothingness. What gives you hope are the thoughts in your mind. It's not a God implanting you with hope. As far as you implying without God there can be no hope, what evidence are you basing this off of? I won't speak for others, even though I feel I confidently can, but as an atheist myself, I am now filled with more hope for the future and life in general, and as a believer, that was something that was always out of reach. What's good about atheism is that there is also hope, but you aren't, at least in some cases, plagued by hate that also in some cases provoke judgmental thoughts and actions against other people and their life choices. Shouldn't it say something to you that you are judging an entire group of people as being hopeless in the first 30 seconds of your little poem, while also providing no evidence of your claim? Did you ask a bunch of atheists if they were hopeful? Or instead did you just make a judgment call? I wonder what makes you think the way you do.
And to me, what doesn't make sense is the theory that humankind has no creator. When's the last time a movie formed out of nothing made its way to the theater? Ever stared at a painting and assumed it independently evolved into its form and features? I mean, we all start as students. There has to be an original teacher.
Really, again with the teleological argument? Damn you, William Paley! Very simply put, the teleological argument, once again, is watch equals watchmaker. Therefore, universe equals universe maker. But by this logic, universe maker must also equal to universe maker maker. And so on forever. Your cop-out of God exists without time isn't proven, nor would you try to prove it. So you see, we end up with more questions that arise by this logic, and it in no way is supported by Occam's razor. Furthermore, even if this logic was sound, it still would not work with the Judeo-Christian God. The universe is simply too old to coincide with the Bible. Not to mention the Bible is too inaccurate to coincide with history. But let's delve further, shall we?
How could creation be so beautifully precise if it all came about by the roll of dice?
Life only exists because it's possible to exist. This is not proof of God. Many people have died because of the way our earth acts. I wouldn't exactly call it fine-tuned.
Then why assume different when it comes to you and me?
Because all evidence, contrary to what you are being fed, suggests it so. And until a time where evidence suggests differently, this is the best answer we have. And it's a lot of evidence.
So let's say that you're right and there's no God. If there's no God, we're all accidents.
Why is it so insulting to you if we are just here? Why do you feel the need to be special? Imagine for a second we are just here. I find this a great notion. We are all alone, and look at what we have accomplished so far. We have full libraries of knowledge that we can carry around in our pockets. We found ways of curing illnesses. We invented music, art in general, which made it possible for you to become inspired to make this video.
And life really is ending, so we should just do what we want. Law-breaking, bending, marriage ending, drop out of school, keep evil like a patent, pending.
You know, it's funny you should say drop out of school, since most atheists, if not all, support education as one of the biggest priorities there is. Okay, so this is going to sound like a broken record to many people, but if you need the existence of God, or a book to tell you what to do in order not to kill, rape, steal, etc., I feel very, very sorry for you. Plenty of us heathen atheists do good things and have a better sense of what morality should be now that we are not tied down by these dogmatic views. It's actually your viewpoint that should have you doing whatever you want, because after all, you can essentially do almost everything in the book then turn around and say a prayer and all is forgiven. You can go right back to living the same life and lather, rinse, repeat until you die. As long as you die with those sins absolved, you can go to heaven. Whereas someone like me can do nothing wrong their entire life and end up in hell on a belief technicality.
Might as well try it all. If there's no God, then we're all going extinct.
Why is it such a bad thing to die and cease to exist? Theoretically, you didn't exist before you were born. You had no problem then. What makes you expect you'd have a problem after you die? Also, how do you make sense of heaven? When I was a theist, I used to try and wrap my head around it frequently. The only thing I could come up with to make heaven viable was to have our memories wiped. I say this because imagine a mother who has no interest outside of her friends and family. So her only child is an atheist. So he's fucked. But then so is she, because she won't get to spend eternity and theoretically another second with him. How could a good person deal with this? If I had to live without my family in heaven because they were in hell, I'd rather volunteer to go to hell and burn right beside them. Or just go just to know that they were not alone. I couldn't enjoy eternal bliss knowing my family or really anyone is going through eternal torture. Could you? Have you ever really thought about it? I'd also know I'd rather go to hell than still exist and have my memories of this life wiped. Wouldn't that be cruel to strip you of your daughter or your most treasured memories? All just gone and forever. I mean, we take the most important things for granted. You don't think heaven would be taken for granted? I think the first 100 years would be okay. Then you'd start to get bored. Depending on what heaven is like, even if it's bliss, which we all have different definitions of bliss, but I mean, after 1,000 years, I see it being torture. I think everyone would just, at some point, want to die.
There's no worship on Sundays because there's no God to worship. And there's thousands of vacant buildings because there's no such thing as churches.
Okay, so you find out God doesn't exist. Your problem would be vacant churches? I'm really starting to question these lyrics, like honestly.
Suicide is really a way to end our pain. Possibly the only.
You think if God doesn't exist, we should kill ourselves? How many problems do I have with this? Let me count the ways. My first problem is that you can't see a problem with it yourself. Is this video from like 2006? I haven't found a video like this in a long time. I personally only found pain and torment with religion and faith. I have not been happier in my life since becoming atheist. In your description, you claim you aren't trying to bash anyone's beliefs, but you make some comments that are not just explaining your beliefs towards God, but explaining how you feel about people not believing in God. I mean, it doesn't offend me. I'm not really bothered by this type of stuff anymore. I don't think I can be surprised by the words that come out of people's mouths at all anymore.
And thousands of men and women are still drug addicted, running the streets.
Is this just a statement? I'm trying to follow you here because it would seem like most of what you were saying in this video depicts a certain what if there is no God, what would happen type of mentality. But this is more like a statement because an alarming amount of people are addicted to drugs presently. So I don't see why you were using this because you presently believe God exists, so why doesn't he do something about it? I don't know, you say some pretty ignorant things, but for some reason this one kind of just gets to me. Because it's like you aren't even trying anymore.
And the woman who gives her body for cash to any male really is just another female.
Again, this is something that is going on while God doesn't lift a finger to help you in your perspective, so it doesn't lend anything to your argument. I think the fact that you were trying to rhyme is seriously hurting your argument here. You spent way too much time trying to rhyme to make sense, that's for damn sure. And to imply that drug abuse or prostitution would multiply with atheism is just an unsubstantiated claim. Like most claims in this ridiculous video.
Because if there's no God, there's no gospel to preach.
Well, no shit. If there's no God, there is no gospel to preach. Do you really believe in God just so you can preach the gospel or learn it? What does this have to do with whether God exists or not? Is this proof to you?
If there's no God, then there's an in blank we trust on our currency.
That phrase, in God we trust, wasn't added until 1957, and it was just a political move by Eisenhower's office while we were at odds with the Soviet Union. They were trying to declare moral superiority to the Soviets. But if you want to use history, how about the fact that a good number of founding fathers were deists and despised the Christian faith? Don't believe me? Give yourself a treat and conduct some unbiased research into it. I think you'd be shocked, but either way, that still doesn't argue for or against God.
We'll cry out to the sky because God doesn't exist to hear our cry, and the only Lord who won't ignore is the landlord. When it's time to pay rent you can't afford.
As for God not hearing our cry, can you show me evidence of a miracle that did not translate to regular happenstance? Every time someone tries to validate a miracle, it just translates to regular happenstance. But let's talk about miracles for a second. They are pretty selfish. Let me give you an example. Now, I don't know if this story is true, and I didn't care enough to check. It's irrelevant. The point is someone would be selfish enough to do this. And the fact that so many people admire this story. So you have a family, a mother, a father, and an infant daughter. Now tsunami comes by and washes the mother and father out of the house. And finally the mother and father get back to where they were staying, and the baby's there, still alive. So they start screaming, "Miracle," in front of all these dead bodies floating around them, beneath their feet in the rubble, around kids that have just lost everyone they ever loved, in front of mothers who just lost their kids, their husbands. And what they are saying is, God was gracious enough to save their baby, but not yours. God told the rest of them to go get fucked. That sounds miraculous. Or how about the cross that was standing at 9/11? Over 2,000 people just lost their lives, and God, instead of magically saving these people, or outright stopping it from happening altogether, he stopped what he was doing and made everything fall just the way it did so that a crucifix would take shape. Is that a miracle? I don't think so. And I think it dishonors the victims to even say shit like that. As for rent, I don't get where you're going with this. Either you are going to be able to afford your rent, or you won't. Religion makes no difference whether you are working or not, poor or not. True that a church may pay someone's light bill 1 month, but usually, at least in my experiences, you must be a member of that church.
Without God, I suppose the sky painted itself blue, and the grass is just Earth's hairdo, and flowers took a class on how to bloom, and the round object at night that looms, that's just an overdeveloped nightlight we happen to call the moon, and maybe it's mere coincidence that the sun, afloat like a scorching balloon, at 9,950 degrees, is distant just enough not to burn us to our doom. Coincidence. Right.
I seriously thought you were going to mention the banana for a second there. As for the Earth's hairdo, I'd buy that. It already sounds like something out of the Bible anyway. Have you ever read up on evolution though? Some things have to happen in order for Earth to support life. These things are not proof of a creator. As I've said, when we study these things, they in fact suggest thus far that a creator was not needed. So this really just ends up working in my favor.
So, in closing, having nothing left needing exposing, I have no patience left in me. Check out the comment section that defends me. The shit you say in this vid makes me wonder if you're still a kid. I can go on and on forever, but I must be moving on to my next endeavor. I never did like rap, yo, never gave me no thrills. Maybe that's because it takes absolutely no skills. I think you need to snap back to reality. Would it make a difference if you read a book on gravity instead of buying into this depravity? So let's start a revolution. We don't need to agree on the Constitution to know that we need a resolution to this thing we call the God delusion.
Without God, life is like a plan B. Without plan A, no original plan.
No original plan.
If you like this video, please like it and or favorite it, or consider subscribing.